Please resist. Hello, I'm Claire, and I'm going to stand here rather than here because I'm quite short, and you won't be able to see. You'll be able to hear me, but you won't be able to see me. So I may move around a bit. So if it's really annoying, I apologise. I don't get out much. Chief Executive, this is great because it's been, in fact, well done to all of the pre-MT and the postgraduate presenters. It was, fantastic. You clearly put a huge amount of effort in, and you're all winners in my eyes. So well done. I've been in the world of professional and career development for about 17 and a half years. I previously worked at the Royal Society of Chemistry, and I've been with CRAC and Vitae. Don't worry, I've heard all the jokes about CRAC. So it stands for the Careers Research Advisory Centre, and we were formed in 1964, and the programme that we deliver in higher education is called Vitae. And there's lots of bits on your table. There's some more bits at the back as well. What I'm going to do is talk a little bit about who we are and what we do on your behalf and how we work. I'm going to give you a little bit of context about the research environment, some data and evidence about what do researchers do next, and some tips and maybe some signposting to resources and support for you in your own professional and career development. And then hopefully, if you want to, ask me some questions or ask each other some questions, then that would be great too. So we are, as I say, we've been working in higher education since the, late 60s. So we're the oldest organisation and world-leading organisation in researcher development. And we sort of work at 4 levels. The first one being policy, and I'll come on to some of the things that we manage within the policy environment in a bit, called the Concordat and the HR Excellence Award. We also work with institutions like Leeds, so Leeds are part of the Vitae community and part of the family, and we work closely with people like Tony to support and share best practice across the different doctoral colleges, across the support that's out there for research staff and for early career researchers. We also empower researchers, so there's a whole host of online resources and support. We have a Twitter chat tomorrow talking about how to balance caring responsibilities and a research career. So we do things in collaboration with lots of different organisations, international organisations as well. And then we work to provide the evidence as to why institutions like Leeds should worry about the researchers as much as they worry about the research. Right, so how do we work? In the middle, we have the Wheel of Fortune, or the Researcher Development Framework. I shall come on to that in a bit. And the Concordat is up there in the top middle. And I'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. But we work with the UK Research Staff Association. So these, if you're a postdoc, these are the people who represent your voice to funders and to institutions. We administer something called the HR Excellence in Research Award, of which Leeds are, have action plans and support in place. We work with over 200 universities in 20 different countries. So we truly are a global organisation, and we have things like Every Researcher Counts, which are all sorts of resources and support for researcher developers to have an inclusive research environment. We also manage Pearls, Cross and Pearls are 2 big benchmarking surveys that happen every 2 years. So the Careers in Research online survey, which some of you, if you're postdocs or research staff, may have taken part in earlier this year, and then the Principal Investigators and Research Leaders. So these are massively, across the UK, looking at the temperature of the research environment, and that research is used by individual institutions, but also by funders, government, to look at the shape and how things are moving. Okay, so why do we need to prepare you for an unknown future? Hands up, who knows exactly where they will be in 5 years' time, what career they'll be having, what they'll be doing. Come on, hands up. Who knows what they will do in 5 years' time? Okay, Tony does. Okay, right, not very many of you, okay. So hands up, who knows what they're doing next year? Okay, so more of you. So it becomes really difficult to understand where you're going, what you're doing, the further out in terms of time. Okay, how many of you think you spend more than 5 hours a week on career and professional development? Yeah? Good, well done you. So 4 hours a week? 3 hours? 2 hours? 1 hour? None. Okay, well, you're here, which is a good start, and the good news is there's lots to help and support you. So for those of you who are thinking about your career and professional development, that's really important, because the only person that can understand what makes you tick and understands where you might want to go is you. And there's lots of support to empower you to make the right decisions based on the information that's out there. We need to broaden all researchers' competencies. It's an uncertain and unknown world. And in terms of understanding who you are and where you're going, emotional intelligence, understanding that self-awareness, how to become a leader, whether that's a research leader or if you go into a career beyond academia, how to work with others, to collaborate. So there's huge amount of uncertainty and huge amounts of change. All researchers are being exposed to lots of different environments. You need to be more intellectually mobile than ever before, and you need to be agile. And lots of people use the word agility or resilience. Actually, it's just about adapting to that unknown future, being open to the changes and challenges that are out there. The research environment is changing. Global challenges, much more collaborative research. Lots of examples of that today. You don't just pigeonhole yourself as an engineer or a social scientist. You're working in collaborative teams. Increased public accountability. So within the teaching environment, we've got TEF, so the Teaching Excellence Framework. Research funding is allocated using the Research Excellence Framework. We now have the Knowledge Exchange Framework, KEF. So we've got TEF, REF, and KEF. And keeping up with these policy changes is really, it's really important for you. Some of them will affect you directly in your future careers. Some may not. But actually being aware of what's going on in the research ecosystem is really important. There was responsible research and innovation, which has very much been driven by the EU, by the Commission. Open research agenda. So again, open data, open access, research ethics, and then there's the personal brand and digital identity. So we actually, some of our postgrads mentioned sort of using Twitter, using public engagement, so engaging with audiences outside of the university, using BBC, North, East. Again, there's lots of different opportunities. So how do you know which ones you need to take advantage of? And do you need an ORCID ID? Do you need Twitter? Well, actually, if you don't understand where you're going, what you want to do, and how you're going to get there, then you don't know how to allocate the different amount of time. We're all time poor, so by being strategic, you need to understand how you spend that time. Let's quickly just mention the Concordat, which was developed to support the careers of research staff. So this is, every university is signed up to the principles of the Concordat, and they cover everything around recruitment and retention, equality and diversity. And the funders and government and Vitae, we work together to look at that, and there's currently a 10-year review going on at the moment, so there'll be some change to the Concordat moving forward. But it's looking at the sort of the research environment, certainly for research staff, so postdocs. Back when we started the Concordat or the version that we now have of the Concordat in 2008, only just over 30% of research staff had any kind of appraisal. It's now over 70%. And back then, none of the Russell Group had a mention of the researchers, the people, in their university strategies. And now all of them do, and most other universities do as well. Talent development, people development is really important if you're in a global higher education business. So there's a moral imperative for funders and universities to support the people. There's also that economic imperative, because the more productive you are as a researcher, the better the researcher will be, the more collaborative you'll be. most people have mentioned the word impact, so the more impactful everything you do will be. In whatever post-Brexit world is, the war for and the competition for talent will become even more important. And so growing that talent pipeline here in the UK and globally is really important. So again, certainly the Department for Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy see it as a key driver moving forward. So what does a good researcher look like? Hands up who thinks they're a good researcher. 2 of you. Okay, that's good. Room for improvement. Okay, what do you reckon? Does she look like a good researcher? Maybe she looks, well, she's in the library, clearly. They don't look like they're clearly not as productive as you are here at Leeds. Look, they share, takes 4 of them to turn it on and look at it, and only 2. So therefore, Leeds postgrads are doubly more productive than this awful image. But we know what a good researcher looks like, and I briefly mentioned the researcher development framework, and this underpins the vast majority of the support that's given here at Leeds. It was developed with the community, and it's the 63 attributes, knowledge and behaviours of a good researcher. Don't worry, you don't have to manage all 63 at once. So what we've done and what you can do is look at, for example, if you're about to give a public engagement, an outreach lecture, or you're thinking about pulling together some collaborative research, there are various lenses of the RDF, and they focus in on the different skills, competencies and behaviours that you might need to look at. We've done things like map this to chartered engineer and to chartered scientist, so chartered chemist, chartered physicist and chartered biologist, and they completely overlap. So there's lots and lots of reinforcement from the professional bodies and the other associations. So this is all on the Vitae website. You're all members of the Vitae community because Leeds are members. So you can go on. There's an online course that takes you through the different steps of professional development. Actually, there's some cards with the RDF on the tables, and you can use it to have conversations with your supervisors or PIs. You can also use it to think about, when you talk to your mentors, because I'm sure you've all got mentors that are supporting you. And it's a really useful tool to get you thinking about where you are now and where you want to go, and how to do more of those productive distractions, how to be more strategic with your time than just aimlessly wander around. By the time you get to the end of your PhD, you don't really understand what you've learned or where you've come from or who you are. Some quick headlines from the press. Who took part in the postgraduate research experience survey this year? So you can see some hands went up. There's about 58,000 postgrads across the UK. So there are 110,000 PhD or postgraduate researchers in the UK today. It's quite a lot, isn't it? So it's quite competitive. Whatever you want to do, it's going to be competitive. And what PRES does is helps us to understand. So we work with the Higher Education Academy to look at motivations and drivers for postgraduates. And the main reason for doing a PhD normally is an interest in the subject, closely followed by career prospects for an academic research career. In fact, it's still around 65-70% of PhD, postgraduate researchers believe that they will go on to an academic career, and yet in some subjects the reality is a lot less. So, it's extremely competitive. So whatever edge you need to give yourself, you need to understand where you are and where you need to go. Types of career. So most people in this particular research from this year, 40% said that of PGRs, when you go to research staff, it becomes even higher. 40% said that they wanted an academic career in higher education, 15 were undecided, and only 14 wanted a research career beyond higher education. So there's a whole host of other, and you can go to the HA website and download this report. I don't know, do you do slice and dices here? No, but it is interesting. Where do researchers actually go? So it's really difficult to see at the back, I apologise. So green are doctoral graduates, blue are master's graduates, and the sort of burgundy, sort of plummy colour is first degree. So as you would expect, if you're a doctoral graduate, you're more likely to go on to do some kind of higher education research occupation. Research not in the HE sector, you're still higher, there's still a more proportion that stay within the research ecosystem. And then again, teaching and lecturing in HE is high. What's quite interesting, and we've been doing there's some research coming out of Australia looking at jobs where PhDs, where job ads aren't asking for postgraduate qualifications, but actually, if you look at the skills that they're asking for, they need you, but they're not articulating that. And sometimes postgraduate researchers aren't articulating the skills in the same way back to those employers as well. So there's a lot for us to learn about that sort of university to employer interface and how we all work together. This is a really messy slide as well, but basically, if you do a PhD, you're much more likely to stay in higher education research, and your skills will, mostly will broaden. The main headline from this, so this is some research which is nearly 8 years old now, 9 years old, but this is from the Delhi data. So this essentially says that if you're in arts and humanities, you're less likely to go into postdoctoral research. Biological sciences, biomedical sciences, physical sciences and engineering, much more likely to go on into some kind of postdoc qualification. We did some research, hands up, who are postdocs rather than PGRs? Okay, so there was one, because you said, didn't you, that you'd, yeah. Okay, so we did some research which was published last year around research staff. So 80% of research staff believe they want to be an academic. I was at an institution less than a month ago that has 4,000 postdocs, and they believe that only 25% of those will have a meaningful academic career. So the reality is that it is extremely competitive, and you need to be developing your skills, understanding your skills now. The good news is that most research staff are still involved in higher education in one way, shape or form. They're involved in a wide range of occupations supporting universities, supporting research. And those who do go beyond academia go for lots of different reasons, but more long-term employment. So from the cross-survey that the results that we released this year, there are, in the UK, 13% of research staff are on their 5th or more postdoc. Okay, so this could be a very conscious decision. It may or may not be. Please don't be someone who sleepwalks into that type of scenario and situation. Women are more likely to be looking for better work-life balance. And actually for those who go beyond academia, that loss of identity is something to really consider. And it's certainly something that we've been working with funders to think about. 4 out of 5 people who've gone beyond academia are highly satisfied. Actually, the world beyond academia is really, they're valued for their skills that they have. 78% of those research staff, so these are people who'd already left academia and who were 5 years beyond academia. So 78% of them wanted a career in academia, but now only 18% would go back. So those are some quite interesting statistics, and there's a whole host of career stories and information on the Vitae website that can give you some tips and advice about making those conscious decisions. I mentioned a little bit about employers. It's really interesting to understand what employers want. Employers could mean anything. We're meaning sort of non-academic employers in this particular survey. So this was a pan-European survey that we ran last year, and the results were analysed earlier on this year. And the column on the left is all the stuff that you're really good at demonstrating. They know you do this. The stuff on the right, you are less good demonstrating and evidencing. So if you want to think about, being attractive to your future employer, then thinking about innovation, project management, emotional intelligence, and what does that actually mean, business awareness, commercialization, leadership. What does leadership mean in a research environment? So these are all things that you can do something about. You're doing them already. You're just not necessarily demonstrating them, giving perhaps meaningful examples. And here comes that adaptability and resilience, which is really, really important because, it's not just higher education that's changing at a high pace. And again, this sort of, these are how well researchers evidence their competencies when they're applying for jobs. So the green, basically you're doing okay at, the research skills and experience, professional effectiveness, self-management, but the people skills and communication skills, you just need to be aware of it and think about it. And I know that obviously you've got career support here, specialised career support. The Doctoral College can signpost you to all sorts of different resources and people that can work with you to try and understand and present this information, because you're doing it, you're just not evidencing it. So for those of you who are still, this is a really important, you have to plan your career like you plan your research. It isn't going to happen by chance. Yes, you will make your own luck, but you have to be strategic and you have to be selfish and spend time reflecting and thinking about yourself. We ran some focus groups and some qualitative surveys with arts and humanities PGRs earlier on this year, because we were slightly worried that often the perception is that research and development provision within universities is very STEM heavy. Oh, that's not for me, it's for the STEM PGRs. That actually in arts, humanities and social sciences, portfolio careers, actually independence, and what does that mean for PGRs? There are some different questions and different challenges in arts, humanities and social sciences. And we came across a postgraduate student who, and we called her Strategic Susan, because the Strategic Susan had a spreadsheet. And Strategic Susan planned her week meticulously. In fact, not only did she plan her week, she planned her months, her years. She knew exactly every single experience that she needed to have to be able to get that academic career. She knew which conferences she needed to go to. She knew that in year 2 she needed to be presenting a particular conference because that particular conference was going to be close by, and she could, only use part of her fund that she had with her supervisor that she could then go and spend some money going somewhere else and presenting the research again. She'd just done all of her. Now, I'm crap Claire. I didn't do that. Somewhere in between is normal. And so I think, you just need to work out what your systems and are. Things like the research and development framework is there to help you, and there are lots of support structures in place. Strategic Susan might be slightly over the top, but it worked for her. As I said, the Doctoral College has loads of support. Go and, to the website, appointments, make sure you avail yourself of all the free support for you. Also, sign up to the Vitae website where you can get content, member-only content. Again, the Twitter chat, so balancing caring responsibilities in your research careers. Tomorrow, we do all sorts of other online events as well. And get involved with UK RSA. If you go into that sort of postdoctoral, if you go on to be a postdoc, then they're definitely a good place to go in terms of that peer support. But essentially, as I say, you need to be self-indulgent, spend some time thinking about what you're learning, where you're going, who you are, what you want to be, and make good use of all the different support that's around there and out there for you. And register for Vitae, obviously, because it's free. Tony, do you want to come? Should we take some questions? Because it might be that actually the questions may be more aimed at Leeds, so you can answer it rather than me in terms of specific provision. But again, what's the main key message? Plan your career like you plan your research. Okay?
Before we take some questions, we could take some applause, please. Thank you, Claire, for your presentation. Okay, so we have got a few minutes. If there are any questions from the floor, it's not often that we get a national, as I said, international figure in research and development on our stage. So is there a question or two, or even from some of my colleagues who've been listening attentively? It's quiet. Oh,
stunned into silence.
We have a question.
Well, the first is a comment, and Claire, you may be able to clarify the situation. Every once in a while, somebody asks me how they register for the Vitae websites.
Yeah.
Yeah, and my understanding is they need to use their University of Leeds email address, and that's what they recognise. That's what the system recognises. Yeah. Yeah. So to register, use your University of Leeds email address. Yeah. Okay, so the question I've got for you is you observed that you've been at the Royal Society of Chemistry before you came to Vitae. So you've been working in this field for a number of years now. What do you see as the biggest changes that have taken place when it comes to the development of PGRs?
It's a good question. I think the agility and that intellectual mobility. So my perception and my time as a postgrad, it was very head down, do my research. And I think now you're just expected to be much more up, down, left, right. And I think funders expect that, your future employers expect that. And so that means more demands on your time. So how do you balance that time? That would be my... But did anybody else have anything to add?
So people are helpfully pointing things out.
The research and development framework is quite extensive. How was that created? Because it seems quite important.
Yeah, it took 2 years. Was anyone in this room involved in its development?
I wasn't.
Yes, Jim. Yeah, okay. So it took 2 years of experts in research and development. It has multiple levels underneath it that help you to understand, in the same way that chartered status does it, and professional organisations and associations have those sort of levels. There are professional development levels that sit under the RDF. So yeah, it took 2 years. What's really interesting is it was developed very much with the UK, by the UK, but we've been doing some work, DFID funded, so Department for International Development funded, with 29 universities in Africa, and they have completely get it. So we thought that it might need to be, obviously you need to contextualise it, but actually the language still has stood the test of time, so.
Okay, thank you. If we just take one final question.
Hi, I just wanted to ask, so you can sign up with your university email, as Jim said. And then how long are you a member for? Is that lifetime membership, or do you want to answer that?
From our perspective, as long as you have a Leeds address.
Yes, yeah, as long as you have a Leeds address, and it's a great resource, and I would love all of you to use it, particularly also because we pay for it annually as well. So one answer to that is you can use it as long as we pay for it. So we have every intention to continue to pay for it. So, yeah. Right, I think we'll stop there. Thank you again, Claire, for your presentation. Thank you very much.